Hi everyone, and welcome to the CIH podcast. I'm Alex Gibson. I'm the Content Production and Engagement Manager at the Chartered Institute of Housing. I'm delighted to be hosting this podcast today, talking all things Housing Community Summit, and this is the exciting collaboration between the Chartered Institute of Housing and the National Housing Federation, taking place on the 8th and 9th of September at the ACC in Liverpool this year, where we're going to be joined by thousands of you coming along, from housing professionals to politicians, stakeholders to residents, and everybody in between. I'm joined by three brilliant housing professionals today, two of which are speakers at this year's event and one of which sits on our advisory panel, helping us to shape the conference that is quickly becoming known as the community event for the sector by the sector. So today with us, we've got Akshita Lakhewal, who is the Net Zero Engagement Officer at TPAS Cymru, and she will be speaking at the Net Zero Homes Theatre on tenant engagement with net zero strategies. We've got Crystal Hicks, who is a director at Crisis and is also president of Women in Social Housing. Crystal will be speaking at the summit on data bias and also on temporary accommodation. And last but not least, we've got Neil Goodrich, who is Head of Customer Improvement at SNG. Sadly, Neil's not going to be on the stage this year, but he will be sharing his wisdom all around the exhibition, I'm sure. Neil has been in our advisory panel now for 2 years and is one of many members that has helped shape the conference into what it is today and what it will be in the future. So just to give a little bit more of a background, for some years now, members of both CIH and NHF have asked for a more collaborative approach from the two organisations, which would make total sense when you take into consideration how our asks of government as the trade body and the professional body are always aligned, and our very purpose is to lobby for and to work with the housing sector at all levels. So collaborating on the Housing Community Summit means combining the expertise and influence of both us at the CIH and also the National Housing Federation. And we work year-round with our members and advisory groups to ensure that this summit is packed with high quality, recently CPD accredited relevant content taking place across the two main areas. So the first area we have is Housing in Focus, and that is the ticketed space dedicated to thought leadership from top political speakers and housing senior leaders, with a focus on business strategy and delivering social purpose. Your Housing in Focus ticket will give you access to all areas of the Housing Community Summit, and that is including housing in practice, networking events, and the exhibition floor. Our host this year for Housing in Focus is Kirsty Walk, who you'll know for presenting BBC's Newsnight for 30 years. You can expect to hear from very senior government ministers this year and leaders from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. We'll hear from Homes England and leading think tanks such as the Resolution Foundation, campaigning arms such as Shelter, and we've also got the Royal Institute of British Architects, Centre for Social Justice, and we've got the Domestic Abuse Commissioner for Wales and England coming along as well. That's just to name a few people who will be coming along to speak at Housing in Focus, but not forgetting the host of housing associations and local authorities discussing the biggest challenges and opportunities of today's housing sector. So all of CIH and NHF members get free access to Housing in Practice, the second stream of the conference, which takes place across the huge exhibition floor, and this is a bespoke programme of sessions tailored for housing practitioners. This year, we've got 6 streams of content, and topics range from asset management and development to housing management and engagement. We've got artificial intelligence and technology, and also net zero homes. So all of this is guaranteed to give you new insights into your role in housing. We've got our fringe stage again this year, but we've also got a brand new stakeholders corner, and this is a dynamic platform designed to engage, inform and empower you to share your latest research into the most pressing societal issues. So all in all, I think what I'm saying is you're not going to be short of things to do. And if we take into account recent government announcements, it almost feels like we can get excited about what's to come for the housing sector, which has been quite a long time coming. So before I get talking to our guests today, I just want to, just on a bit of a personal note, explain how it's been an absolute pleasure to lead on the content and production of this conference with our members, because it feels completely different to your standard housing conference, and that we're truly celebrating the sector and the people in it. We get to work with so many dedicated and inspirational people every day, and that really comes through at this conference. But also, most importantly, we're not shying away from the issues that need addressed, and the summit provides a safe space for meaningful dialogue and collaboration between landlords and tenants. So I had this vision from the very beginning when producing Housing in Practice, that we get to hear from housing officers, repairs operatives, contact centre staff, ASB caseworkers, you name it, who get out there and do the job every single day and do an amazing job at that. But they've not yet had the opportunity to shout about it. So we actively encourage housing professionals and tenants to jump out of their comfort zone and come along to the summit to share your knowledge, get to know one another, and have fun, because that's how we learn and that's how we grow together. So without further ado, and I'm going to take a breath now, we're going to get speaking to the important people about what they're most looking forward to at the conference and what they'd like to get out of it. So I'm going to start with you, Akshita, if that's okay. Would you be able to just let me know what you're kind of looking forward to this year at the Housing Community Summit, both as a speaker and as a delegate?
I think there's a lot I'm looking forward to. Just as you said, there's so much in the conference and the summit in general for everybody to look for. But what really excites me the most is the range of sessions to choose from, whether it's community engagement, sustainability, or even practical innovations from the AI sessions. There's so much packed in the whole summit. And as someone who's young women in the sector, always looking for fresh ideas and inspiration, this just feels like the best opportunity to be there and not to sort of miss out. You get to hear from people doing incredible work across the UK, and that energy to me is really hard to match. So, really looking forward to it.
Amazing. And what is it about speaking at the conference that you're looking forward to? Are you nervous? Are you excited?
I think engaging residents in retrofit has been such a important journey, I would say, for everybody in the sector, that it always feels very special to speak about it, but at the same time, it's quite a challenge. So at TPAS Cymru, we always look for opportunities where we could speak more about what we've learned, to sort of share good practice, but also involve tenant voice so that we can all bring a solution which actually works for them and not what we think is right. So I'm really looking forward to share those lessons we've learned at TPAS, but also learn from the people in the summit.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Crystal, what are you looking forward to as a delegate and as a speaker at this year's summit?
Yeah, I think I'll go a bit rogue, Alex. I mean, I think the program is brilliant. It always is, and that getting that voice of our tenants and those with lived experience of homelessness is always something that strikes me at these at the summit. But I'm honest, it's getting to see people. Like, we live in such a virtual world, don't we? And there's just nothing like that in-person connection. And this is quickly becoming the event of the year for sector professionals to come together, to network, to see faces that we might not have seen since last year, but to check in and say, how's it going for you? Like, what have been your highlights? What have been your lowlights in the past 12 months? That connection, we're a social housing sector, aren't we? And we're quite social people in that sense. We thrive from getting alongside one another, supporting one another. And I think the Housing Community Summit last year created a space like that we've missed for a long time. So I'm really excited about just connecting with colleagues and friends in September.
No, I love that. I think sometimes people are reluctant to say, actually, I'm coming just for the networking, but it's such an important part of a conference because, like you say, you can reconnect, but it's the amount of new relationships that you make as well, which then impact your daily jobs. And I think, I'm exactly the same. I think these things for me, it's getting to meet new people, getting to understand their passion for the job, and keeping in touch with them as well. But in terms of being a speaker, Crystal, I know you've got quite a lot going on at this conference, two quite contrasting things. Do you want to just give us a bit more information on that, especially data bias, because I feel like that's something that's not really been touched on a lot.
Well, this is it. I feel like my two sessions are chalk and cheese. So the first one is a problem that won't go away, which is temporary accommodation. And I think it cost us like £2.2 billion last year to the public person, temporary accommodation. So that session is something we really know about, and it's going to really focus on how do we create solutions then, and really good practice in that area. So you'll walk away from that session with some really helpful sort of advice and tips and tools on how we can overcome the issue of temporary accommodation. And then the other session, which is on data bias, I think is one that we don't know much about. We don't talk much about in the sector. So we're becoming more and more data obsessed, aren't we, as a sector? Hallelujah. We're actually realizing that data is a really important thing to have. But if we're going to be basing more of our decision making on our data, that data has to really represent our tenants and our colleagues accurately. And we've got quite a bit of blindness, not just in the sector, but society as a whole, around women and women's lives, women's needs, women's expectations. And that's coming through our housing sector data. So, for example, women are much more likely to complain to the housing ombudsman about their landlord than men. Women do a lot more unpaid care work. Actually, 75% of all unpaid care work is done by women. Women are much more likely to die in our homes because of trips and falls than men are. So once you start to look at your data in that way, all of a sudden we realise that maybe we're missing a trick here in terms of designing services, homes, policies that are right for our female tenants and our female colleagues. So that's what that session's about. But it's not going to be finger pointing, don't worry. It's all going to be putting a spotlight on some brilliant work that's already happening in this space to inspire others to go away, maybe do that in their own workplaces.
Yeah, I can imagine there's going to be a lot of people walking away from that one thinking I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, I've got to admit, when you came to me with this idea, I was like, yes, absolutely, because again, it's just something I wasn't aware of. But of course, it's happening as well. So Neil, what are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to not speaking this year and just being a delegate?
Yeah, no, it's nice to go without having the pressure of thinking, what do I need to say? How do I say it? And anyone who's met me knows I'm pretty blue when it comes to my language. To try not to drop an F-bomb in a packed room is tricky. I promise we haven't tried to align this before we came on air, but actually the session that Crystal was just talking about was one of the ones I'd flagged as what I wanted to go to. I work in performance, I work in reporting. Data is incredibly important, and having good quality data, both from an operational point of view, but also from a policy and a strategy decision-making point of view, is critical. And we have big, wide gaps, both in terms of our knowledge of people who live within our properties, but also the impact on the services that we provide. So very keenly looking forward to that. As you probably know, Alex, I love a bit of controversy. So the session on service charges, getting them right, making them fair, is another one I am keenly looking forward to, because Sue Phillips, who's one of the slated speakers, is very good and robust at pointing out where we are coming up short as an organisation. So it'll be nice to go along to that. And just again, to mirror what Crystal said, I've been in the sector now for too long, but one of the things that was always important back in the day was having the opportunity to physically meet people, to exchange ideas, and just to, for want of a better word, press flesh is a horrible saying, but being able to, particularly when I was a younger housing professional, you could be quite lonely in your organisation because there weren't too many people of a similar age, similar experiences. You're suddenly coming into an environment where mortgages, babies, and all of that was in the talk in the office, and actually just having a space to have a chat with people of a similar age and just pick their brains and connect. I think that's one of the big pluses for Housing Community Summit coming along. And what I hadn't realised I'd missed until last year was that opportunity just to connect with people. So very much looking forward to it. Very glad I don't have to talk this year. I think most people are bored of my voice anyway. So yeah, looking forward to making the most of a couple of days in hopefully the sunny northwest.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to get along to that service charges session as well. We've got First Tier Tribunal there and the Housing Ombudsman to come and give their jurisdiction on what's going on with service charges and why they're maybe not so fair and what we're not getting right about them. Neil, I'll stick with you just as we go on. So why is it, I think you've just touched a little bit there on why you think obviously events like this are important for sort of networking and isolation, but why do you think events like this are important for professional development?
Purely from a networking perspective, I'm a head of service now, which I like to call as a junior senior manager within the sector. A lot of my career has been helped by the opportunity just to walk up to a chief exec and pick their brains. In the days before Twitter being a bit sideways as a social media platform to use, you were able just to ask very bright, very capable people questions, and they would happily give their time. It's exactly the same with these sessions. If you are cute and able to do some work ahead of time as a younger housing professional, you can be speaking to someone who's senior in the regulator in Homes England, someone who works within a pressure group like Crisis, or any which way in between. So you have an opportunity for yourself just to start to build up those connections, what I call a big black book of names that you can then draw on. It's a collaborative sector. We don't necessarily work in conflict with each other, and building up those soft networks I found invaluable, not just for my career, but also for my personal development, challenging me on bits and pieces, which you can get a bit of an isolated view if you don't expose yourself to others. So yeah, it's important from that perspective, and in an age where we're so online and so disconnected from people in real life, I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, you don't have to tell people they're on mute in person, do you? Which is nice and refreshing.
Sometimes I wish you could put them on mute, but yes.
Sometimes you do wish you could. Yeah, that's fair enough. Actually, why do you think things like the Housing Community Summit are important for professional development, or even just for yourself as well?
I think just to sort of pick up on Neil as well, you come with so many ideas from these places, and in-person events have been incredibly useful for a person like me who's young, who's sort of trying to figure out things in life. And it's refreshing. I would say it's a reset almost to step out of your day-to-day work and be reminded of that big picture, because just working in the space of net zero, where there's so much of negativity, so much of discussion around whether we should even invest on it, you need those conversations, those ideas, and those inspiration. So honestly, we've all had those moments on LinkedIn as well, where we feel that, oh, I wish I could have a chat with this person, or like a coffee with this person, pick up the brains. And I think these events really make that happen. You connect, you learn, and it really stays with you. So I've always found events from CIH useful, productive, and always come with lots of ideas. So I'm sure I'm going to have lots of ideas this year as well.
I don't know if anybody will say this on the podcast, but Neil heart emojied that, and I would do the same as well, because you're spot on, and that's amazing. Actually, thank you, Crystal. Why do you think it's good for your personal development, and why would you encourage people to come?
Well, you don't know what you don't know, do you? I think this is the thing when you're in your day job and you're in the thick of it. And let's face it, the sector, we're in the thick of it most of the time, aren't we? It's highly demanding work emotionally and mentally. And so you can get quite blinkered, I think, in terms of, what are the solutions? What's the innovation? It can be quite challenging to create space in your week for that. So I think to come into a room with housing professionals, like the answers are in the room, right? So I think that brings a different dynamic to it. So I've become a little bit obsessed with ChatGPT recently. Like, it's honestly taken over my life. It has been mad, but it's made me so much more efficient. But I think that's what it's like. It's like having ChatGPT in the room. Like, you can just walk around the room and find somebody who's got the answer you need to maybe that problem that you've had going on and it worked for months. So as Neil said, if you do your research and you find out who's there and you go and seek those people out, and people have done this to me, come up at events like this and said, oh, Crystal, I know you're a bit of an expert in this. Could we just have a bit of a chat over a coffee? Because I'm there. Of course, I'll create space for that. But, you live in Wales and I live in Newcastle. Like, we're not doing that the rest of the year. So it is a really unique opportunity to really tap into the expertise in the room.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to move on to the programme a little bit, hoping that you've looked at it again, because it's been updated. It's always getting updated. Cool. Okay, so Neil, I'm going to just start with you. If you can just give me your top 3 sessions that you're looking forward to the most from Housing in Focus, and we can have a little chat about that.
Yeah, I put a few down. I think just because the chief exec of S&G will be at that, how fun the future of social housing, always good to box tick there. I think it's genuinely going to be an interesting topic. We're probably post-spending review in one of the most positive periods funding-wise for social housing for a long time. I appreciate that is a low bar considering where we've been over the last 15 years or so, but how we move forward now from what is effectively the CIH and NatFed getting all of their asks from the government on the spending review, how we can build on that and how we can future-proof. We are in interesting and different times geopolitically that will naturally have an impact on the UK more broadly. So that's probably number one. DHS policy update, really timely. Something in there in the consultation around floor coverings and potentially furniture as well. Two massive bugbears of mine. So really pleased to see that being proposed, and getting a bit more information on there. And then power of tenant satisfaction. Had the pleasure of doing a session with Jonathan Cox from Housemarque last year as well. He's going to be there again working through, but it's a critical one in terms of getting the organisation, one, to be held to account for the services that it provides, but also how we can use what our customers, our tenants, our residents, insert preferred name here, how we can use their feedback to improve the services that we provide. There's a lot of work to do. There's a reason why the TSMs were brought in. There's a reason why regulation around how we do things has been tightened up. But again, it feels like we're at the starting point of a journey that will ultimately lead to better outcomes for the people who use our services, live in our homes, and ultimately, for those who work in the sector, provide them with a salary that means they can live their own lives. So yeah, they're probably my top three.
Smashing. Crystal, what's your top three in housing in focus that you can't miss?
Oh, well, I'm a housing and practice girl at heart. So yes, I'm going to struggle, to go to everything I want to go to. But I think so there's a theme that's going to run through these. So stigma and inequalities, a call for accountability. I think I work in a world every day where people say that one of their barriers to overcoming homelessness is around stigma and how they're perceived by fellow citizens in this country. So that one is going to be really interesting, speaks to my heart. Temporary accommodation, the toll on children. So again, you can see the theme. It's all the people stuff for me, right? But I did a presentation last week on temporary accommodation and re-looked at the stats. And in the north alone, there was 160,000 children in temporary accommodation. So really understanding how that impacts on their ability, I suppose, to thrive at school and what that means for their life chances moving forward. I think that'll be a really important discussion. And then my final one is the conversation with Reverend Dr. Galit Francis. And the reason I mentioned that one is because she came on my podcast recently, and what an incredible woman. Her story is it is amazing. And I think she's tipped maybe to be the new Archbishop of Canterbury. So I think, yes, to hear directly from her around what the church can do to help end the housing crisis in this country will be really interesting. And I sit on the Church of England's Housing Association board as well, so I'm a bit biased there, but she will, she'll really put a new light on that, I think, in that session.
Thank you, Crystal. Okay, we'll delve into housing and practice then. Actually, there's the top three housing and practice sessions that you can't miss this year, and what are they?
I think with so many sessions, it was quite difficult for me to choose my favorites, but I've definitely got a theme like Crystal as well. But the first one is the reactive to predictive, which is the AI's role in the future of tenant engagement. I am very, very fascinated with AI and how it's sort of got to help in housing and tenant engagement and find solutions for us. So that is definitely not to miss if you are in AI like me. The second one is from a learning perspective. So as a young person, I'm always trying to learn new things. And that to me is very interesting on procuring with purpose to reduce environmental impact. So really looking forward to that as well. And the third one on my list is how to talk about homes, which is something I do in my profession every day, on the language, which is so important. And it really seems timely. So those are my three picks, but I'm sure I'm going to have some more thoughts to it as we sort of move closer to the day, because there's just so many sessions to choose from.
Thank you. How to talk about homes is one of the most popular things we have ever done it's with Joseph Rowntree Foundation. We can't take the credit, but we often host webinars for them. And I think we've got one coming up possibly in 2 weeks' time. That's got over 200 people booked on, and they're always popular. There's one in October that's got 168 people booked on already, and people just want to know how to talk about homes properly. It's that stigma piece again, though, isn't it? Because I think historically we've just done it all wrong in how we talk about social housing and affordable housing. But there's a lot of stuff as well that Joseph Rowntree are doing actually around how to talk about sustainability as well. And they did it was a sort of like masterclass last week in person in London around this, and that was also excellent. So have a little look at that if you can. Neil, housing in practice, top 3, go.
Well, I've already mentioned 2, so I'm going to be sneaking out a few more. So again, is our data aligned to us? I think it's going to be a really good one. Role of asset management within regulation. I think for the sector, it's a critical piece at the moment that we're not quite getting right in terms of how we look after our stock, invest in it, but also properly understand it. We have a large proportion of social housing in this country built pre-1960, because that was kind of the tail end of the mass building. So we have some difficult decisions to make as a sector as to whether we reinvest, whether we regenerate, or whether we just dispose and move on. So that'll be very interesting. Mentioned service charges before, just because I think it is a good, robust challenge to the sector, and we haven't got service charges right for a very long time. So it'd be good to actually get that monkey off our back, so to speak. And a bit of a theme as well, but moving from standard data to smarter data. There's data everywhere, but not a drop to drink for a number of organisations. I'm old enough to remember when big data was a kind of en vogue term for the organisation, leaving aside the fact it was never going to be, because we're too small as organisations to have big data. It was more like small data. But actually how we better use information relating to our assets, relating to our customers, relating to our residents, and bringing that in to deliver better services, I think is critical for the sector, given the challenges that we have. So yeah, they're probably the main ones I am looking forward to. There's hundreds in there, but yeah, they're probably the top ones I'm definitely going to make an effort to attend.
Every time I hear that there's hundreds or there's too many, I get the fear, because last year I forgot to put breaks in, so our poor AV guys were like, there's too much going on, so I've had to try and calm it down this year, but there's still quite a lot going on. I see there's too much content. It sounds like not a bad problem to have, but it really is. Crystal, can you give me your top 3 for housing in practice this year, please?
Of course. So this is my comfort zone, housing in practice. So yes, positive housing pathways for new migrants. So here at Crisis, in the northeast, a third of the people we support at the moment have been given leave to remain status. And our housing system has not been designed in terms of our pathways with them in mind. So really looking forward to just sort of listening in to that session and seeing what some solutions could be here. Second one, handling complaints. It's more than just a process. Some of the best service improvement decisions that I've made as a sector leader have come from complaints. And understanding how our complaints processes can be developed to be as much around learning as they are around effectively managing that complaint would be a really good session. And then my third one, strengthening communities, how the housing sector can effectively address poverty. So poverty and child poverty especially is something that's on the rise when you look at the data, and heard some horrible things in the news recently around children growing up in Dickensian style, Dickensian, conditions in their homes. So yeah, what role does housing play in creating that foundation for escaping the grips of poverty, really? I know when I was at Jill Murray's presidential dinner, and we had Keir Starmer before he was president, wrong country, prime minister, come along. He said, housing is the foundation for life. And if you've got a strong home, you can build from there. And I think as a sector, we have a massive role to play in enabling people to move out of poverty and into thriving, fulfilled lives. So really interested to hear about what's discussed there.
You could run a conference on every topic on its own, really, couldn't you? I mean, especially positive housing pathways for new migrants is something that I'm going to get along to myself as well, because Anna Yassin's just brilliant, and so is Wad Mohammed as well from Ashley Community Housing, who's going to talk about his lived experience. And obviously our ensemble lister at CIH, who runs our housing rights website. So it will be brilliant. It'll be very insightful. And yeah, I think in terms of all of the sessions, again, it's one of them ones where you want to go to all of them. I want to go to all of them because all of the sessions have been designed by somebody. I mean, like yourself, Crystal, you've put 2 in there and you've helped us run it. And the submissions that we got this year were absolutely fantastic. And I've done the best that I can with the help of our producers and our coordinators to make sure everyone gets a little bit in there. And so I just kind of want to say thank you to everyone that's getting involved, really. Just to wrap up, I guess what I was going to ask is, if you could say one thing to a housing professional now that is sitting on the fence about booking for the Housing Community Summit, what would you say to them?
Book. You've got nothing to lose. Like, worst case scenario, you get a trip to the northwest and get to wander around Liverpool for a bit. Best case scenario, you make connections that stay with you for life. There are a number of people who I've worked with and met through previous conferences that I would consider friends, and that's not the ultimate outcome for this, but it can be the positive end result. But get out of your comfort zone. You don't have to do the boozy stuff outside. You can go in and just take and pick what you want. The event has been designed by housing professionals for housing professionals. Make the most of it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to go next year. So, all good.
Exactly. Crystal, and then Akshita, what would you say if you're sitting on the fence?
So I'm going to speak to why people might not have booked yet. And, I am president of Women in Social Housing, so I think about where women might be coming from. So look, you can come for the day. You don't have to come for the whole thing. You can get a train to Liverpool from most places at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning if you need to be back. You can work on the train on the way there. You can work on the train on the way back. So if you're worried about workload, there's a way to do a long day and come and really benefit from it. You will get so much out of it. So give yourself permission to just book. Don't carry the mum guilt or the carer's guilt. Come along. It will absolutely be worth your while.
And it's free if you remember. Keep remembering that. Actually, now what would you say to anybody sitting on the fence?
I'd say you don't want to be hearing all this from me from secondhand. So come be part of it. The stories, the connections, the insights, they're all better in person, So come join us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is all we've got time for. So I think, like I say, now really is the time to get involved. You can book your place for the Housing Community Summit directly through the website, housingcommunitysummit.co.uk. If you need assistance with this, you can email us as well at events@cih.org and we can help you secure your place. The links will be shared along with this podcast, I believe. But I just want to thank Neil, Crystal and Akshita for their time today, and I hope to see everybody in September. Thank you.